Hello, my name is Felipe dos Santos Rocha, and I'm going to present the paper Safety Requirements and Risk Analysis related to insulin infusion pumps, a systematic review. This paper was part of the project to obtain my master's degree in technological innovation, and it was written along with my advisor, Luiz Eduardo Galvão Martins. In this presentation, we're going to go through the sections of the paper, and those are introduction, some background related work, the research methodology, as this is a systematic literature review, the results and analysis, the conclusion, and some references. According to the most recent study from the IDF, in 2017, 8.8% of the world population suffer with diabetes, and it is estimated that until 2045, this number reaches around 630 million people. On this image, we can see the scenario for diabetes in 2017 and the projection for 2045 for all continents. All of them show increase in the number of diabetics, especially the ones underdeveloped, like South America and Africa. And this puts diabetes as a major healthcare issue. In 2017, approximately 4 million deaths was caused by diabetes. That is one death every 8 seconds. That represents 10.7% of the death. And considering the challenge that diabetes poses, among its treatments advanced, we can mention the insulin infusion pumps. Those are automated equipments that simulates a healthy body regarding production and delivery of insulin. And its intention is to maintain blood glucose in normal levels. So as medical equipment, its operation must be highly reliable to prevent underdose and overdose that may put in risk the health of the user. So those aspects are the main reason that lead us to conduct the systematic literature review, aiming investigate the risks implicated for the user of the insulin infusion pumps, and also understand how safety and functional requirements for the insulin infusion pumps have been treated, developed, and studied. Related to medical errors, one of the most important books on the subject is To Where is Human? Building a Safer Health System. On it, it showed that the most part of the medical errors are due to faulty system processes and conditions. And other two prominent papers on the subject analyze generic model for insulin infusion pumps, listing risks and safety requirements for those equipments. And when it comes to the development of the equipment, there is this paper that proposes a prototype of a low-cost insulin infusion pump. On it, the authors propose the basic insulin infusion pump hardware composition and also propose the software architecture that is a modular one. And moving forward on the technology, there is the artificial pancreases. Those are closed loop systems where the blood glucose reading is performed in real time with automated action. And there's also the importance of certification of the equipment from the intended market. The research methodology followed these steps. There was verify the need of the systematic literature review, define research question, and develop the review protocol, concluding the planning phase. Then selecting the primary studies, performing the study quality assessment, and the data synthesis, finishing the conducting phase. Then draw the conclusion, consider some threats, and then we could disseminate the results, closing the documenting phase and concluding the systematic literature review. The research questions were these three. What are the risks implicated for the user of insulin infusion pumps? How the insulin infusion pumps deploy systems that mitigate or attenuate the risks implicated in its use? And what are the safety and functional requirements for an insulin infusion pump? Regarding the review protocol, the selected sources were PubMed, ScienceDirect, and IEEE. The search methods were researches through web searches engine. The study selection criteria was scientific paper written in English in the last 10 years. The inclusion criteria was paper that bring discussions of requirements and risks of the insulin infusion pumps. The search string used was this one: infusion pump and safety or hazard or risk or accident. And the method to refine the search string was to run a few trial searches to verify the outcomes. With the search string defined, the selection procedure was to read the title and the abstract of the paper and check them against the inclusion criteria. And by the end of the search, we had a list of 57 papers to get fully read. And the properties we aimed to extract from those studies were those: research methodology, context, risk discussed, systems deployed, and requirements approach. To verify the quality of the study selections, we performed this quality assessment, asking this question: is the aim of the study addressing the research question? Is the presented approach clearly explained? Is it clear in which context the study was carried out? And are the results or findings clearly illustrated? And the threats to validity we considered was publication bias, identification of the primary studies, and data extraction consistency. And now getting to the findings. To illustrate the results, we first draw some demographic distribution of the properties extracted from the studies. The first one was regarding the research methodology that could be categorized as case study that evaluates an approach or a theoretical concept in a clinical setting with well-defined goals. Clinical report that details an experiment in a clinical setting without declaring research questions. Experiment that reports an experiment with clear goals, not necessarily in a clinical setting. Conceptual analysis that discuss a theoretical concept or novel approach without validating it. A report that conducts a discussion on the analysis of the past and the state-of-the-art technology. And systematic literature review that conducts a systematic literature review. So the class with least studies was systematic review with only one paper, and the class with more studies was conceptual analysis with 18 papers. And we also draw the distribution according to the context. That could be clinical, that are the ones that the research was conducted in collaboration with or promoted within hospitals, or no clinical, that are the studies conducted in an academic setting. And on this property, we've got a good distribution with 34 papers on a non-clinical environment and 23 papers on a clinical context. We have also divided the studies into year of publication and country of the first author. As for the publishing year, we've got a peak in 2015 with 8 studies, then a small drop in 2016 with 3 studies. But in either way, we've got a neat distribution without heavy discrepancies among the years. And considering the country of the first author, as expected, the country with more publication was USA with 29 studies, that is more than half of the total. And in second, we got Brazil with 5 papers. Then in third, we've got United Kingdom with 4 papers. And USA was expected as the most publisher considering the databases in which we selected the studies. But Brazil in second place came as a surprise for us. And now considering the properties related to the research questions, we had risk assessment, systems deployed, and requirements approach. The risk assessment could get divided into 6 classes: therapeutic, that is related to the drug use; energetic, that is related to energy dissipation; chemical or biological, that is related to problems for the patient's organism; mechanical, that is related to physical parts of the equipment; and environmental, that is related to the interaction with the environment. And the least common risk reviewed is energetic related, with only 10 studies mentioning this risk. In contrast, the most common risk discussed is therapeutic related, with 56 out of 57 studies considering this class. But it is important to point out that the same study could be mentioned in more than one risk class. As for the system deployed, uh, it was analyzed for which segment the risk improvement were proposed. That could be only software, only hardware, both software and hardware, or neither. And we had 21 studies uh, treating only software. We had 4 studies treating only hardware, other 21 studies treating both software and hardware, and 11 studies that do not detail system to improve the safety, but they still were kept in this review as they bring relevant data and information. And the requirements approach was divided into insulin administration that may have influence on the drug control, user interface that is regarding user inputs, information display, and buttons, uh, alarms and alerts that is about warnings, safety checks, or self-tests, uh, event logging that are recordings that may help on the analysis of errors, battery management that has relations to battery constraints, power saving, or standby mode, and interaction with the environment that is regarding the operational conditions and external interactions. And the most discussed requirement class is drug administration with 38 studies, and right behind it is interaction with the environment with 35 studies. The class with fewer studies discussing it is battery management with only 4 documents, exposing the need to better ponder this matter. But again, it is important to point out that the same study could be mentioned in more than only one requirement class. And try to draw the association among some of the properties. We build the graphs of P3 that are the risks versus P5 that are the requirements, and also P1, the context, versus P4 that are the systems deployed. On the first one, we can see that the most common combination is therapeutic risks with drug administration requirements, with 41 studies. And this could be expected as both classes are regarding the medication. On the other hand, the least common combination is chemical or biological risks with better management requirements, with only 2 studies. And those are the only 2 studies discussing all the risk classes and other requirement classes. On the second graph, we can observe that the research methodology that more presents solution for both software and hardware is conceptual analysis with 6 studies. And the research methodology with more studies that do not present solution is also conceptual analysis with 4 studies. And this could be explained by the representation of this methodology, that is 18 studies out of 57. To mention some of the risks discussed on the papers, the main ones mentioned are drug dosage below and above specified. Overdosage of insulin makes the organism metabolize more glucose, leading to hypoglycemia, that is low blood glucose level. And underdose of insulin, on the contrary, leads to hyperglycemia, that is high blood glucose level. And some of the popular causes of those errors are misoperation, that is caused by the person controlling the equipment. On the insulin infusion pump, the user himself. Then it is very important training or presentation of the equipment. And error treatment. That is, the equipment must emit alarms when adverse event happens. But if too many alerts are generated, may occur alarm fatigue, that is the disinterest in take action for the warnings. So the challenge in reducing alarm disinterest is multifaceted. To comment on the system to mitigate errors, some discussed on the studies are human factor analysis that may help to refine the product to attain the user expectation. Model-based and model-driven engineering. Uh, on this technique, models are built from expected properties, and the implementation occurs from that model. The failure mode effect analysis, the FIMIA, that intends to identify risks of processes and products during its implementation or even after its launch. The Lean methodology that is derived from the Toyota production system and aims to eliminate wastes that may help to reduce errors. The fault tree analysis, that's a technique that helps understand hazardous situations in the context of safety critical software. The unified modeling language and UML profile used to specify the design for the insulin infusion pump may help identify the requirements for the equipment. The impact flow diagram that may be used to define a failure path for the use of technology, and the drug library development that seeks to introduce thresholds for the drug dosage, that is soft limits and hard limits. On the soft limits, an alarm must be emitted, but the user may overwrite and proceed with the infusion. But with the hard limits, the user must select another dosage, as those cannot get overwritten. And some of the requirements discussed in the studies are dosage assurance that must come from software and hardware that comprises syringe, catheter, and tubes. The fail-safe mode, that is, if some error is found, the equipment must enter this mode, continuing to deliver insulin in a safe rate. The dose error reduction system that must be integrated with the event logs to help analyze and understand potential errors. The availability of the system. The system must remain available for the user at all times. The confidentiality of information. The data must be knowable to only the intended parts. The integrity of data. The data cannot be undetectable altered. The authentication of access. That is, only the authorized parties or components should be able to act. And the authorization of access. That is, certain authorized actions must be verified before execution. And returning for the association among properties, as P1 and P4 are both qualitative, it is possible to run a Pearson's chi-squared test to check the magnitude of the association. And since some of the expected frequencies are less than 5, the correction of Yates must be applied. As results, we found the value of 0.34 for the association. This means that there is not a solid association between those properties, but still it is perceived a fable association. Then, coming to the conclusions, on this systematic literature review, we aim to investigate the requirements and the risks for the insulin infusion pumps. With the studies, we found many papers treating hospital infusion pumps, that is, their smart pumps. It is worth mentioning that this manifestation does not invalidate the aim of this review, because the smart pumps and the insulin infusion pumps have the same operation principles, so the risks and the requirements are similar. The main risks we found were hyperglycemia and hypoglycemia, that are the effects of underdose and overdose of insulin, respectively. And those may be caused by a wide set of reasons, like malfunctioning of the equipment, poor algorithm development, damages in the infusion set, and even incorrect operation by the user. And with the results and findings of this paper, we hope to raise a discussion that may lead to the development of safer equipments for the treatment of diabetes. Here are some references used on the writing of this paper, and the list of all the studies analyzed is available with the full paper text. Thanks for the attention, and if you have any question or comment, feel free to contact me on this email address.